founder of Keto Chris. Today we're on the CanDo Podcast with my good friend, Danny Goldberg. Danny, thanks for coming on today. It's so great to have you, buddy. How are you?
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm pumped to be here.
Yeah, it's great. Guys, before we get started, I just want to give you some incredible background about Danny. Danny is an entrepreneur who has started several businesses in college. He won $50,000 to start his first business and subsequently went on to start a seven-figure manufacturing agency where he helped create the Gravity Blanket, which to date is the biggest Kickstarter project in history, grossing $4 million in just 30 days. I can't wait to get into that, Danny. What a feat there. Outside of his business goals, his life mission is to help people deal with adversity and overcome even greater circumstances, building their dream life. To do this, he uses a platform called Bits of Gold, and we'll get into that. It's a podcast that he does weekly, and he's often on it and brings guests and talks about tragedies, successes, business stories, and so on and so forth. It's my great pleasure to have Danny on. Danny, thanks for coming on today, and it's really awesome to chat with you. I really appreciate it, my man.
Absolutely. So pumped to be here today. Thanks for having me on.
You got it. First, I want to get into this business project. How did you get started with that? That's a daunting task in college, and congrats to you.
Appreciate that. Well, I've been an entrepreneur since from an early age. When I was 14 years old, I started my first business selling boxing gloves door to door. Boxing still my biggest passion, and at the time I was working at a gym, and I saw a lot of people. I was working at a gym. I essentially was like the gym janitor. I was cleaning up the gym on weekdays, weeknights, weekends, and I saw an opportunity to sell equipment in the gym to the people who were working out there. And my dad really nudged me to pursue the things that I was deeply passionate about. And that sort of led me down the path to entrepreneurship when I was 14 years old. Really thanks to my dad. He helped sort of set some things up for me, but pushed me to pursue my passions. And at that time and still today, boxing was one of my biggest passions, and imported a good amount of equipment from Thailand and then started selling it gym to gym. And from there, the story sort of evolved from boxing equipment to me being involved in co-founding a Diamond MMA, the world's most protective jockstrap. And today I'm no longer in either of those businesses. In 2015, I sold my boxing glove business to one of my largest customers, and subsequently went on to leave the jockstrap business after building it for a year and a half. And I went on to start a manufacturing agency, helping companies source, manufacture, and scale consumer products overseas. And that's really what I've been doing the last 6+ years now, helping consumer-facing companies find, set up, and scale supply chains overseas.
That's great. One of the things that you touched on, and I want you to talk about it further as we look into the entrepreneurial side of this podcast, is I really think it's critical to find what you're passionate about, because it doesn't seem like work when you're doing something you love. Talk about that and how it makes you feel.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in terms of how it makes me feel, I mean, there's nothing better in the world than waking up, getting to do the things that really make you come alive, the things that you truly enjoy. You sort of hit the nail on the head. But if you can find that sweet spot, you'll never really work a day in your life, or you'll be willing to put in the late nights and the early mornings because you'll be so energized around the things that you're working on. But with that being said, it's much easier said than done. I think, when I was in college, I'm now 27, but when I was in college, especially now looking back as like a 27-year-old, the stakes for failure, or the stakes are just so low in regards to, you're a student, you're in school, you could fail try a million things, fail a million times. And there's really there's very little in terms of failure really putting you backwards. It's more just like a failed experiment, a learned lesson. And in college, I was constantly experimenting or trying new ideas, tinkering with businesses, etc. Um, and I think really you want to strive to try to figure out both what you're good at and what you're passionate about to try to, build a career there, because I'm a pretty passionate guy and I have a lot of passion still to this day. Like I love boxing. I like hiking. I love music, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I should have a business in all those categories. So I think now
Correct.
as yeah, so I think now as I continue to grow up and evolve with age, I continue to think that there's a sweet spot of finding what you're good at and what you're passionate about and trying to pursue that.
And you bring up a great point. Find what you're good at, and then also know where you need to hire, where you may not be good at, and bring in partners, build teams. Because life is all about relationships, and it's so critical to have those relationships to build a lifelong, friendships and community.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one other thing that has continued to become more and more important to me is just like working with people you really want to spend time with. And I had a job. I worked in for a tech company for a little bit. I've started numerous businesses, and I think one of the biggest things now, also, as I think through, like, hey, where do I want to spend my time? What's the business I want to focus on, etc. Working with good people, working with people you really enjoy. I think it's just as important, maybe if not more important, than finding the thing that really makes you the thing that you're really passionate about. I'm sure you can relate with this at your own in your own business, but when you're working with people that you want to work with, it just becomes the greatest time in the world, regardless of the problem that you're trying to solve or how bad the problem is. If you have a warehousing issue, a shortage of material, or raw material, or you're trying to solve a big problem, if you're doing it with someone that you truly enjoy spending time with, it's like the greatest time in the world.
Right, because you're using all your skill sets, you're communicating, you're problem solving, everything. I couldn't have said it better myself. And even every day there's challenges, but I take them as opportunities to learn and grow and to work with those people, and it is super fun. It doesn't make that every day is the greatest, but at least if you got those people in your corner, you're going to get through it. So
Absolutely.
that's critical. I want to get into you know your bits of gold podcast. That's how we were introduced. You had sought out Keto Crisp, and I was fortunate enough to be a guest on your podcast. And we talked early in the introduction about how the podcast you bring guests on that have been through certain things in their life and overcome tragedies, adversities, and unfortunately, you and I have both lost folks near and dear to our life. Um, I lost my dad in 2011 to cancer. We lost our dad. And then in 2015, I also lost my wife to cancer. You unfortunately have lost both your parents. Your mom at age 20, or excuse me, your dad at age 20, and then your mom at 25. And you know, I don't have to tell you how devastating that is. But for me, I look at the times that we had together and the lessons that we learned. Can you talk about, obviously, the incredible tragedy, but how it made you a better person and your message going forward to those listening to the podcast, and just your outward message every day that you live your life?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, how much time do we have here? There's a lot of bits of gold that I can share.
You have a lot of bits of gold, and that's why I wanted to bring you on, because you're just an incredible guy, and I love listening to you. So as much time as you need.
I appreciate that. Yeah, there's a lot that I could dive into and talk about here. So yeah, I lost my dad when I was 20 years old. I lost my dad to a rare cancer. He was sick for about 7 months. And then when I was 25, I lost my mom to an even rarer, more aggressive cancer. And she was really only sick for about 2.5 months. Um, you know, there there is, I guess, let me just start by taking a step back and saying that grief is incredibly complex. There's no right way to grieve. Um, and for me, I'd say I greatly have focused on personally not why these bad things have happened, but rather what am I going to do as a result of the circumstances that I've been put in. And
Correct.
when my mom passed, at her funeral, in the eulogy I spoke, that's really the message that I wanted to share with those that were there, that it's not why, but it's rather what. And that's really what I believe is the best question you can ask when hard things happen in your life, because hardship is an inevitable part of our journey in life. I really believe that uh, regardless of age, how young you are, hardship, adversity, and loss. I mean, loss is it's a part of the human journey, and at some point, everyone faces difficulty, and specifically loss. Everyone, we all live, and eventually we'll all die. So, um, specifically, that was really the thing that I chose to focus on. It doesn't mean that there are still days that are extremely difficult, or where I wake up sad, hurting, um, especially specifically with grief. It's like it's sort of like a wound that I say never truly heals, that it's under your shirt. It's not, maybe you don't see it on the outside, because you and I here, we both share significant loss and painful loss. And you and I are sharing this awesome moment where we're smiling, talking, and having an amazing moment here. But it doesn't mean that there aren't days where we wake up where our wounds might be more raw, more painful, and we're feeling that sadness. So, I always say that it's sort of like these wounds that are under your clothes, where maybe to the outside, your friends or strangers can't see it, but they're always there. You're always carrying them with you, and sometimes they're more raw than other times. Uh, Specifically as it relates to just getting back to the way I sort of have taken my own losses, is to really focus on what I'm going to do now as a result. And as I really reflect on what I've lived through, you know, there really what I just try to focus on every single day is the fact that I'm alive, I'm healthy, and that in and of itself is a blessing. And I'd say probably the biggest lesson I'd say that I've gained as a result of the losses, really is around time, and the value of our time, and how important it is to prioritize, our own time. I think definitely prior to losing my dad, I hadn't experienced any loss. And then after I lost my dad and my mom, I really view the world entirely differently. And today I try to focus my energy and efforts around waking up every day, doing the things that make me happy, and really asking myself, knowing that I too am going to die one day, how do I want to spend my limited time on earth? And I speak about this quite a bit with some of my other friends. And we always say the greatest wealth is time wealth, becoming time wealthy, and optimizing your life to focus on taking ownership and being in control of spending your day or spending your time exactly how you want it, doing the things you want with the people you want. And I think that's sort of like one of the greater gifts that I've gained as a result of getting all too familiar with death too early in life. But I am grateful for it, because having that mentality has sort of shifted me to start to live my life in a certain way, where I started this podcast, I started this platform in hopes to inspire others to recognize that their time on earth is limited. And if you have dreams, whether it be to start a business, go on some crazy travel expedition, ask a girl out, whatever it may be, we're all here for a limited amount of time, and you should go and pursue those dreams and do the things that make you come alive, and really pursue whatever are things that make you come happy, because this thing isn't forever.
I love that attitude. Things that make you happy. It's so much more fun to have a smile on your face than a frown. And really, you've taught a lot of people a lot of valuable lessons. Not just today here on the podcast, but in the bits of gold, and talk about you know um, you talk about your message. What is the first thing that you would advise somebody that's gone through grief or a difficult time? Right now we're going through COVID and it's unprecedented. It's still ongoing. We thought we kind of turned the corner, and now it's kind of back again. And who knows how long we'll be in this area of unknown. But there's a lot of mental uncertainty. And how have you dealt with that? And what advice would you give to people listening out there today?
Yeah. I always say, and maybe it's something that you can talk about as well, but like I always am curious, for like I view my life sort of in there's sort of like before death and after death, where it was like life before my dad died, life after my dad died, life before my mom died, life after my mom died. And specifically with loss, in each of those instances, it was like I was the type of person before my dad died. I had my views on the world, and after he died, it's like I was sort of a piece of me died with him, and I rebuilt my life to be back up with new wisdom, a new perspective on life, etc. And then again, when my mom died, took that same sort of mentality where sort of a piece of me died with her, and then I rebuilt from the ground up with a new perspective on life, etc. I'm always curious, how to take sort of this uh the the wisdom or the perspective that I've gained sort of as a result of my circumstances, and how do you give that to someone, or how does someone else learn that without maybe living through their own hardship? But I think it's
But
tough. Yeah, go on.
I would say that, obviously death is probably the worst hardship you'll ever go through, but there are different hardships, whether, loss of a job or, just dealing with hardships. I think having that mentality and being able to break it into manageable pieces and taking the situation and turning into a positive. I know that that's worked well for me in my life. I could always say, woe is me, I'm in this chair, I never had an opportunity to walk. But I'm grateful for every single day to be able to do what I can do and not worry about the things that I don't have any control over. As it relates to me, I would say, you know, as I look back on my experience, I'm grateful for all those, and, really try, even through the most difficult time, look at the positives. And for example, with my wife, every day I was there making sure that she had the best life possible, even though it was short, just giving her all the attention, love, and giving her all the tools to be as comfortable as possible, and never giving up, always being her advocate and fighting to see if there were ways that we could improve things, or just leaning on family support or whatever, and just dealing with things head on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I think you sort of hit the nail, but like gratitude's so important because, and it's funny, like even before you started talking there, I was just thinking, like I'm so grateful for uh and this might be very counter to what someone might think, or someone might hear this and say this kid's crazy, but I truly am grateful for the hardship too, because in many ways it's like without that, um I wouldn't have the perspective, thought, or ideas that I have today, and specifically really the perspective, because I can guarantee, like if my parents were still here today, alive, healthy, I wouldn't be speaking with you, and I'd have an entirely different perspective on the world. And like the fact that, both you and I share significant loss and are able to sit here alive, healthy, and we're able to speak about this, and so openly and honestly, it's like such a beautiful thing. So I sort of view I, I don't wish hardship upon anyone, but I think sort of if you can, and it's obviously much easier said than done as well, but and I think it has to run its course, right? Like you don't just uh specifically with loss or anything, you lose a job. I got fired from a job. It's not like you walk out of there and you're like, oh shit, I'm happy that, whoops, am I allowed to
Right.
curse?
Of course you are.
You know, I don't think you ever leave those circumstances right away where you go, wow, this is great. It's sort of like, when my mom was sick, I remember I was sitting in the other room in complete shock, hysterically crying, and I was really asking, at that moment, I was asking, like, how could this possibly happen again? I only lost my dad less than 5 years ago. How could my mom now possibly be sick, less than 5 years later? And only to find out that the journey for the next 2 months while she was alive was really brutal. I mean, she checked in the hospital, never left, operation after operation to try to get her to be stable enough to get chemo treatment. She got to one treatment, and then it was sort of deemed that uh, she would move into hospice care. And in many ways, in those moments, you're not thinking about, wow, I'm so grateful for this. Of course, like that's crazy, and it's a process that you have to work through, and you have to be open to, the painful feelings, the hurt in that process. But like I said, I think eventually you want to try to come around to a point where you say, I can't control the cards I'm dealt. The only thing I can't control is what I'm going to do now. And how, for me, it sort of always goes back to, specifically with lost time, and how do I want to spend my limited time on earth. I think it's something I wake up constantly thinking about, just being all familiar with how fragile our life is. And I read this once, but it really resonates with me, just the fact that each day is a gift, and there's no guarantee for tomorrow. So but I think it's just hard to instill. But in many ways, I think even now, just sort of as a result of what I lived through, I sort of uh enjoy sort of the adversity or the hardship. And I try to actually, in some ways, like I try when I work out or things like that, I try to put myself in uh different types of hardship now that are more forced or manufactured, to try to see, where I can push my mental state or physical state to be in like the most to know that I can do more, be more, and strive for more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I live the rule every day. Every day, I try to push myself out of my comfort zone because I feel that's how you improve.
Yeah.
If you're constantly raising the bar and you're, constantly trying to evolve and be better, it's always helped me. I never am one to feel sorry for myself at all. And like you said, you're dealt these cards and you got to play them to the best of your ability. And life is not always going to go your way, but it's really about how you responded. And you responded so greatly and so eloquently by, you know, helping yourself, number one, but then being able to help others. And I think that's really our common thread is our passion to be able to help others and really make a positive impact on the world. Because I think back when I was a kid, I'm thankful that my friends, my family, they didn't push me in a corner. They knew I was special, not because I sat in a chair, but because of the person that I am. And I believe, like you, that everybody has a gift. And I think that's really a great mentality and something that I live by every day, and you do too. Um, talk about um, let's see. You talk about building a purpose in life, and you touch on this every day about getting up and being excited for things. What are some of the things that you're working on now that you're most excited about?
Yeah, absolutely. I think specifically around the podcast, my Bits of Gold podcast. Right now, we release one episode a week with someone inspiring who shares a story of their own adversity, waking up to who they truly are, finding their own purpose, and building their dream life. And that's something that's really, bringing me alive on a daily basis, because I'm thinking, how can I grow the show, share it with more people, and really just have a bigger reach to inspire more people. I think that, um, you know, exactly the same thing that you're doing, both in your business and in your podcast. I sort of have this mentality, if I could help one person, it's all worth it at the end of the day. I'm also I'm an active volunteer for an organization, Experience Camps, which is a free camp for kids ages 9 to 16 who have lost a loved one. It's a free 1 week camp, and actually it's coming up here in a couple of weeks now, so I'm really excited about that. But I think it's very similar in the sense that um, I sort of look and I'm curious if you resonate with this as well, but I look at going back to like the gratitude thing and just being grateful. I sort of view, sometimes people ask me, a friend might ask me, if you had a magic wand, would you change anything? And a lot of times, some of my friends who have lost a parent, a loved one, they jump right away and they say instantly, I would trade it all to have that person back. And to be honest, I don't know if I would trade it back. And it's a silly hypothetical, but I sometimes believe, like that I lived through what I lived through, continue to live through it, but I've come out sort of on this other side. Like I said, I've built my life back up, have this new fresh perspective on life, and I really believe that now I have a greater sense and purpose to help others who are also living through significant loss or have lived through significant loss, and help inspire them to know that, be that beacon of hope, be that bridge of hope for them to know that they too can move forward and once again find happiness, and hopefully, use their hardship to also go out and build a life that they truly love, in spite of their circumstances, in spite of the cards that they've been dealt. And I guess that's just my own perspective and take. I don't think everyone would necessarily agree with that, who's lived through something significant, painful, or something like loss, or just feel like the rug was swept from underneath their feet. But I I truly feel that way. Like every uh I feel like I didn't live through all this pain just to live through all this pain. I have a greater purpose now, and I'm really hoping to continue to build my reach audience to help inspire and be a force of good for those who are living through hardship.
Well, you're an incredible inspiration, and just the selflessness that you take, the approach of wanting to give yourself to so many people is going to not only touch one person, but it's going to touch thousands, because it's that attitude of you're here to help, you're here to make the world a better place, and you really are doing that. And your honesty and your insight is just it's incredible, because if you ask that question to me, I would say wave the wand and bring those loved ones back for sure. But you bring a very interesting perspective to it, um, and 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 that would be my first thing, is how can I help others? Not necessarily about me. How can I help the next person be as best that they can be? And I'm so interested in this camp that you're involved in. There's so many people that you can help out, and it's great.
Yeah, we got to get you involved.
Yes, yes, for
Yeah,
sure.
I don't know. It's the magic wand thing is like a funny hypothetical, because obviously it's so out of the realm of possibility. But I think Inky Johnson is a motivational speaker who he lost his arm in a football traumatic accident. Are you familiar with him?
No, I'm not.
So he went on. He was a football player. He lost his arm. They had to amputate his arm, and I might be messing up the story a little bit. So don't quote me on any of this. But he went on to become a motivational speaker, and he really used football. Football was the tool to eventually build a better life for himself, his family, etc. And he ended up having this accident on the field he was tackling someone else, and they ended up having to amputate his arm, and he couldn't play football ever again. And he sort of, talks about often how he wouldn't trade a thing. And because he went on to inspire so many people and motivate, not motivation, because I don't like to use that word so much, but like really went on to create meaningful change and impact in other people's lives,
Yes.
uh, using his story to really, help others make change in their own life. And it's like, so it's such, to me, it's like, wow, that's so much more powerful than if he went on to become an NFL star. Because think about all the other people who heard his story, resonated with it, and said, hey, like, I'm going to make lasting change in my life now as a result. And that's sort of like how he viewed, his accident ended up being sort of this catalyst that, made him make this lasting change in both his own life and other people's lives. And I think that that's really powerful.
I agree. And I think, I've always said this, you know, the world doesn't, the world always gives you things that you can handle. And I always believe that somebody put me in my position because they knew that I could handle it. And so I love when people stare at me and ask questions about the chair. And I love when, because that means they care and I care too. And I want to get to know people and to be able to help them as much as possible. And you and I share the same mentality. We just want to make the world a better place. And you're certainly doing that every day. And it's so cool. And I don't want to use the term refreshing. It's just awesome because you want to be around more people like that, because we, tomorrow's not promised to anyone, and you
Absolutely.
really you really take each day as it's your last. And I can, you can see the smile and the emotion in your face. And every day waking up, like you said, to really make an impact, to reach as many people as you can, uh, is really awesome. It's great. And I'm so thankful every day on a lot of levels that, but the thing that makes me most proud as it relates to Keto Chris is this bar has allowed me a platform to meet so many cool people like yourself, so many can do stories, because life is all about what we can do, not what we can't. And you certainly live that every day by, going through what you've gone through and turning a negative situation into a positive. And, I say this all the time. Life is much more fun with a smile on your face. Um, and to have people around that can build you up and have that support is really critical, you know, to getting through the tough times. Talk about your friends and family and how they've been supportive over the years in your business ventures, and obviously dealing with your personal loss.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, um, I'm extremely grateful for my family first and foremost, but my friends, my wife, everyone who's uh
Congratulations, by the way, newly married. It's very, very exciting. Awesome. You and Emily both. That's great.
absolutely. So yeah, I'm uh extremely grateful. I feel extremely fortunate to have built the circle that I have between my friends, family, etc. I think without them, the journey, the life journey, but specifically the losses would be, uh, that much more painful and difficult. There are several moments in, while both my dad and my mom were sick, where I can reflect back on, and I sort of have like many moments and times where I say, wow, like that conversation with that person, whether it be family or friend or stranger, was pivotal to the way I was viewing the world at that moment during the lowest low or the most painful points. For anyone who is right now living with someone that, is, whether it be their, uh, whether, I could really speak most specifically to illness, specifically like cancer when someone's battling like a terminal illness. But at least in that instance, I would say um, building a network around you and leaning on your friends, your family. It's just so extremely important, especially during those difficult moments, because you don't need to be a superhero and try to you know navigate those difficult times by yourself or put all the weight on your shoulders. I really believe that uh, I don't know, without my family, without the friends that I have, those moments, I might not have made it to this point right now without the people there. And I think also like what definitely surprised me, especially when my mom was sick, was like the the help of complete strangers. I had some friends connect me when we were trying to move my mom into a different hospital. To I reached out to some friends saying, "Hey, can anyone help?" And I had strangers that I never met, still to this day, who made phone calls to people to try to help. And it's like, you're moved by their ability to take some time out of their busy day to try to help someone they never met, don't know, and really try to move mountains to help you. And uh it's those moments where I still look back and I say, wow, like people, some people can just be so amazing, and it's something you want to pass along, obviously.
Yeah, love is infectious, you
Yeah.
know, and it's really a beautiful thing, and it really shows who's in your corner, referring back to the boxing analogy, and it's really it's a really great thing. So, talk to
I,
me. I want to go ahead.
I was
Um,
gonna say, I love a good boxing analogy.
right. Growing up, who were your favorite boxers?
uh well, I'd say so I grew up watching the fights all the time. I would stay up till like, because the fights were always in Vegas, and I grew up in New York, and I would stay up late watching the fights with my dad. Um, we were both like tremendous Manny Pacquiao fans. I actually remember watching the fight where he ended up getting knocked out square on his face, and I was like, I thought the guy was invincible. So he was probably one of the biggest guys who we watched like from more the early days before he was the Manny Pacquiao that people know today.
Right. Isn't it incredible how those sports memories stick in your mind? For me, it was Mike Tyson, and I'll never forget when he lost to Buster Douglas, and I was just like, "Holy cow! How could this guy lose?" He was like, he was Iron Mike Tyson. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
you
I,
think they're invincible.
yeah, I'm dating myself here, but Iron Mike was the greatest. You know, he was incredible. Yeah. Do you still get in the boxing gym often?
Yeah, absolutely. Growing up, I would do a lot more like sparring and trying to compete and things like that. But now I just go for the workout.
I got to tell you, through my regimen and transformation of losing my weight, I swim daily, and I work in boxing, at least once a week, maybe, a couple times a month, and I really, really enjoy it. It's really a great mind focus, if you will, and it's a great thing for endurance. You think, 3 rounds is nothing, but you are completely gassed after 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever it
Yeah.
is. It's great.
I was gonna say like usually like still at 2 minutes in, I'm like, wow, I should not be this tired right now.
Right, but you're using all your muscles, your mind to where you're going to throw and how you're going to, set this guy up or whatever you're going to do. So it's a great mental and physical sport. I really like it.
Yeah.
Um, um, so talk to me now going forward about your business. I love hearing all these successes, and it sounds like you've got your hands in a lot of things. What are you most excited for going forward, entrepreneurial wise, in the next year or two? Obviously, we're working on. You're continuing to grow the podcast. Is that your main focus, or are you still working on businesses? And I
Yeah,
want to hear some. Go ahead.
absolutely. Right now I'm still focused on building my business, building my sourcing company, trying to help more consumer brands with their supply chain, source, manufacture, and scale production overseas. Still have a lot of fun doing that. One is going back to like sort of finding both what you're good at and what you're passionate about. On one hand, I have the podcast, which is something that really brings me to life. But going back to sort of what I said at the beginning, I look back at my earlier 20s where and this goes more for specifically younger kids that are in college, high school. I think the stakes are so low. So my and I know this wasn't the exact question, but my general advice for anyone in their early 20s, in college, right out of school, try a lot of different things, get out there, try to figure out the things that you like, the things that make you feel energized, because later on it gets harder and harder to sort of just do the things that you really enjoy, etc. Like I said, right now I still really enjoy my business of helping companies manufacture products overseas, and I'm going to continue to do that, build that, hopefully work with more cool consumer brands. I think one of the coolest things about the business that I'm in, and I had a few sales calls this morning with some new brands that we're exploring working with. I think one of the cool things is we get to work with potential companies to help them make their products before they really enter the market. And um, typically speaking, that it's exciting to not only see how that product gets made, but sort of ride that wave with them as we see, some early stage companies go from small business to mid-size and so on and so forth, where they grow, and helping them with their supply chain. That's probably still the most rewarding part of the business that I'm in today. And all the while, while I continue to do that, I'm going to continue to find inspiring people to connect with, to hopefully help it share their stories and continue to build the Bits of Gold podcast and platform.
Very cool. I had a question on the business front. When you look at a business, what are some characteristics where you've seen businesses succeed, and conversely, where they may have struggled to get off the ground? Is there a common thread between the successes and the ones that struggle?
So I do think I think maybe counter to what some people would think, where they think the idea is the most important. I think more than the idea is the execution and the team. Um,
Definitely.
because we've worked with a lot of brands where maybe they had a good idea, but they didn't have a good team to execute. Um, and the idea never really comes to fruition in a meaningful way. On the flip of that, um, we've worked on some ideas where we would just look at the idea and say, "Ah, that's never gonna sell," or "That's a crazy idea," and they bring it to market and they really know how to execute. They really have a good team, and we're surprised by the meaningful success. So I think team and execution are probably the biggest things. I think really um, execution is just so important, because I'll just give you a great example. I could start a keto bar, try to start a keto bar company, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to execute nearly as well as you have. So I think that that's the most important part.
Well, I think number one, you got to be a little lucky, you got to be a little cuckoo, and all these things got to go into mine. But I couldn't agree more, and I'm so fortunate, in all seriousness, to really have a great team around me. You're only as good as the people who you associate with, and I'm super, super lucky that I have people in the room that are a lot smarter and talented than I am, and I'm just part, doing my thing, being a cheerleader, offering my advice and opinion where it can, and just getting out of the way. I think it's crucial to know what you don't know and use your skills that you do have. For me, it's motivating and inspiring and empowering people to be them. Because, like I said, everybody has a true gift, and bringing everybody's gift together makes something special. And I truly believe in each and every one of the people that we have in our team and love them dearly. And it makes me so excited to hear when you say execution and team is really the critical part, because that's my favorite aspect of this business. Yes, I'm happy the bar tastes great, and we're going to continue to disrupt the market, hopefully in a positive way, by bringing great tasting food to market and to inspire and to empower people to live healthier lifestyles, but it's more the experience and the time that you spend with your teammates, and those are the lasting memories that I'll take forever and be so grateful for. And I think that's ultimately going to be the reason why we succeed or don't, because of the team that you have around you. So I think it's a really, really good point that you make.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure you inspire your team on a daily basis. And I'm sure also, as you build your team, there's people on your team that inspire both each other as well as yourself.
Right. There's nothing more than I like than working with the team. That's why for me in COVID, it's been especially challenging because we're all virtual. And I like to see people face to face, give them a hug, a high five. How are we doing this? Where are we going here? Ba, ba, ba. What do you think about this idea? So it's been interesting for sure, but we've been able to move the train along, and very excited about, all the things coming up. We got a lot more work to do, but it's certainly exciting. And, I can't thank you enough for your support of the brand and support of our team. But before we close, and you touched on this before, we talk about life is about what we can do, not what we can't. In your mind, Danny, what's your biggest can do moment that you're most proud of? I'll give you an example. Mine, for me personally, and it's an interesting perspective because I'm always looking at how I can help people, and I don't put myself in the forefront. It's always about others for me and how can I make others' life better. But if I look at it for myself from a selfish standpoint, which is awkward for me because I'm a selfless person, I would say my biggest can do moment was the weight loss and the flexibility that I've been able to achieve through diet and through, just weight loss.
Mm, it's a great question. It's funny. This is the one that stumped me. I think I'm always looking for, going back to what I touched upon earlier. I find myself oftentimes trying to put myself now in these moments of adversity where I have to sort of push forward and then realize, oh, I can do that. I think that's sort of what I'm constantly striving for, especially with like the anything that's physical around like the gym or things like that. I ran the New York City Marathon. Like I'll touch upon this one, and you know
That's awesome. Come on, tell me more. I love it.
uh
All right.
Emily, so my wife also ran the marathon. But so after my mom died, this was October, and she was sick from really August through October until she passed. And when she was sick, I really didn't train at all for my training was like I would my days consisted because she was in the hospital for 2 months from August till October. I would basically get in an Uber or take the subway, go to the hospital, sit with her, be there all day, log onto my computer for a little bit, take care of my work, and then I'd run home. So I'd take my backpack and I'd run home. And that was sort of like how I trained for the marathon. But I didn't do any proper like regimented training or anything like that. So after she had passed, it was October, and a good friend reached out and he said, listen, you don't have to do this marathon thing. It's a lot running all those miles. It's a lot on your body. You have a lot going on emotionally, mentally. You don't have to put yourself through this. Even if you run some, it's a victory. And if you choose not to run and delay it, that's okay too. And I sent him back the longest message being like, of course I said not run. That was never even that thought never even popped into my head. To not run, would be the biggest miss here because um, you know, in spite of what I just experienced, and the New York City Marathon also happens in November. So my mom died October 15th. So I had roughly really like 4 weeks to get marathon ready. And I told my friend, like to not run would be the biggest miss because just because hard things happen doesn't mean it's not an excuse to not go out there, pursue the things that you want to do, and to make the most out of this thing called life. So, I never for a second thought that I wasn't going to run. And not only did I run it, I told my friend that I won't walk for a second of it. I'm going to run the entire time, no matter how painful it got. And that's exactly what I did. So, that in the more recent years, that's probably one of the moments where I'm proud of, where I look back and I said, wow, it's cool that I was able to do that. Now I'm just trying to figure out, what's the next moment where I can say, hey, we can do this, talking more like about myself, but we can put ourselves through this and get past it and make it happen.
Yes. Well, you can do that for sure, because you're one of the most mentally tough people I've ever met in my life. And we use this term all the time, but you're just oozing with inspiration and positivity. It's so awesome to hear. Like, it's the greatest. I want to reach through this iPad and give you a hug and a high five.
I
I mean,
I know. I want to do the same. Yeah,
it's great.
I'm very I know we're trying to wrap up the show, but I'm tough on myself
No,
because it's funny you asked the question around what you can do, etc. But I want to focus more on trying to find more ways to push the boundaries, to realize, oh, we can do more than I think as human beings we set a lot of limitations, on what we believe we actually can do. And I think in many ways that's one of the beautiful lessons from loss. It's like there's no rules to this thing called life. We can do a lot more than we tell ourselves we're capable of. And the marathon was sort of like a great example of that.
for sure. For sure. And just the mental mindset that you're going to do this and be positive and just go for it. It's awesome. To me, it's the only way to go. I don't know any other way. Just to move forward, to enjoy, to take every little piece and make it the best that you can. And you've certainly done that. It's so awesome, man. I don't know what else to say. It's just great. It's a
What
real
was it
pleasure.
like when you, because I know you went on the surfing trip. What was that like for you?
It was a great question. I had never been surfing before in my life, but like you, I always want to try things and push the envelope. And when I moved to Southern California, everybody was like, Adam, you got to try surfing. And I was like, okay, let's try it. What's the worst thing that could happen? I fall over in the water and I freeze a little bit. Big deal. But like, I was so excited by the volunteers and the athletes. Like, it was just amazing. And it just got me thinking, like, if I was in better shape, I could do more things. My brother's incredibly athletic and I've always looked up to him and he's been my hero. And I just wanted to live my life like you, Danny, and just do as many things as I could. I didn't see the chair as an obstacle at all. I saw it as an opportunity for me to just get out there and live life. I don't want people to feel sorry for me. If you feel sorry for me, then you have the energy to better yourself, and that's what it's all about, and that's what I want to see.
Mm,
And that makes me excited, as it does you. Just get out there and do it.
yeah.
Life is short. Nobody's promised anything, and I think sometimes we overanalyze things. We get in our own way. Just get out there and do it.
Yeah,
And if you
absolutely.
if you fail, you fail.
I
But
hope
go
I
ahead.
yeah, I hope more people can learn from my story. They can learn from your story and realize that it really is about not just what you can do, but also having that can do mentality. One of I worked with like a business executive coach for a little bit, and one thing that she told me, and this was pretty transformational, just in terms of like mindset, was to think two things. One, why not you, and if not you, who? And also, what if it were easy mentality, to adopt this mentality where instead of looking at all the reasons why it's going to be hard, impossible, etc., to just try to ask yourself, well, what if actually this does work, and I try this and it's not as hard as I think it will be. And then, also just why not you? I think, like I said, I think a lot of times people put these limitations on what they believe is capable, what they believe they're personally capable of. But adopting this mentality where you say, why not me? Why can't I build this business? Why can't I achieve this thing? Why can't I run the marathon? Obviously all that needs to be coupled with the met with massive action in a thoughtful way. But I think sort of having with that mentality can really help you push the limits on what's really possible or what you believe is possible.
I think those are great words, and just, getting out there and doing it. Why not you? Why not me? Why not this person listening to the podcast? We're all in it together. Ask. One of the things that I've learned in business too is people want to help each other. It's not a competition. It's how can I help you? And, lending a hand, giving an idea. I'm not afraid to ask questions.
Absolutely.
I think it's great. Well, Danny, I know we could talk all day. I know you've got a lot of things on your plate. I really, really appreciate your time so much, and thank you. And I can't wait to continue this conversation down the road. And listen, man, I thank you so much. How do the people get a hold of you and follow you? And guys, follow him. This man is incredible. As you know, he's incredibly inspiring, motivating. Extremely intelligent, thoughtful, selfless.
You're too kind. You're too kind.
It's the truth. How do people get a hold of you, my man?
Yeah, you can check us out on Instagram, bitsofgold_podcast. You could check out our website, bitsofgold.com. I want to say. I should know, right?
It's okay. It's all right, buddy.
And you can contact me, bitsofgold.co. You can contact me there, and you'll include it in your show notes or something like that, I assume, right?
For sure, with hashtags and everything else. So we've got it here. Anything else you wanted to end with? I just wanted to again thank you very much for a great hour, and it's awesome. And thank you for being part of the Keto Chris family. We love you.
Thanks so much, Adam. Thanks so much for bringing me on the CanDo Podcast, for making the best bars in the world. Now I can go back to finishing my snack.
All right, let's get an actual bite there. That's the almond butter bar. Is that your favorite?
It's really good. I'm excited to try the peanut butter one.
Yes, we just launched it a couple of days ago. Super excited about it. Peanut butter chocolate chunk. And for those listening out there, I want to give a coupon code. It's Adam CanDo for 25% off your order. So if you're listening today, and you can share this with your friends, Dan, Adam CanDo for 25% off your order.
They're so good. I could eat 6 of them. It's dangerous.
It is dangerous. It is dangerous. I remember when we got peanut butter chocolate chunk, I ate one. I'm like, wow, this is great. Let me try another one. Wow, this is great.
I'm very excited to try that one.
Yes. All right, my man. Well, I really enjoyed it. Have a wonderful evening, and tell Emily we say hello, and I look forward to meeting you both in person someday real soon.
Absolutely.
All right, my man.